We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. Through the unknown remembered gate, when the last of Earth left to discover is that...
Sam, thank you for coming on the podcast today. We met at Gen Con a couple weeks ago, and I saw your art, and I just really loved your style. I loved the kind of things that you were involved with, and I was super happy whenever I was like, "Hey, do you want to come on the podcast?" And you were like, "Yeah, definitely. I love to do things like that." So, for everybody who's listening, could you just introduce who you are and also what it is that you do?
Yeah, and thanks for having me, Caleb. Yeah, I can't believe Gen Con was only like a couple weeks ago. That's insane.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm an illustrator. I do all kind. I do that full time. I do a lot of freelance work and commissions, and also I go to conventions like Gen Con and art fairs and sell a lot of my own personal prints and original paintings. Um, and yeah, I kind of do all kinds of stuff right now to pay the bills, but kind of ultimate thing is where I'd like to go is writing and illustrating my own stories, which I've got some in the works right now.
Okay. That's really cool. Yeah, I was looking through all the different projects that you've been involved with. I mean, there was the one that was at Gen Con, Garbage and Glory, and then there's also your
Yeah, that's
solo
finally
work.
out now.
Yeah.
Fully, mostly out.
So actually on that topic of Garbage and Glory, how did you get involved with Wet Ink to make that?
Yeah, so actually it was a few years ago at Origins Game Fair in Columbus, Ohio, and I was my first time in the artist alley there, and yeah, that's kind of how I met them. I'd done like this like kind of silly line of stickers. For those who don't know, Garbage and Glory, it's a role playing game. You role play as raccoons and you fight rat bandits, and kind of a more accessible one-shot D&D kind of thing, and as a joke and just kind of just a fun little project. And Wedding Games saw those stickers and thought, hey, this would be a really cool game, and they're very kind of art forward in kind of the way they do their projects, and so
Yeah.
kind of that silly little project turned into a whole world I got to illustrate.
Cool. Yeah, I'm actually going to be having Matt on the podcast here soon. I forgot that
Oh,
you
cool.
guys were
Yeah,
both involved together, and then I realized, oh, that's how I saw both of them together. But
he's a cool
yeah,
dude.
yeah, he seems really nice. I loved him at Gen Con, and I mean, just the stuff that they do at Wet Ink is super cool. So that's really cool to hear though that you had done that art just for yourself, and then did they come across it like on your Instagram, or how did that happen?
No, they were I'm very thankful. They just kind of wandered by my booth in the artist alley.
Oh, okay.
And that's, they just, yeah, they'll kind of do that. They'll kind of scout stuff out at these different artist alleys. And it was really good because that was actually a really bad show that year. Like it was just, the setup was just awful. It was awful. I was like in this back dark corner and felt that I was next to all these like legacy Magic the Gathering artists, which was cool for me.
Yeah.
But I honestly don't even view that show as a bad show because I met with Ink and got to like work on this huge project, and it's I don't know, I feel like it's taken me a lot of cool places, so that redeemed it.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely know that feeling. There's been so many times where like I've either done like an event for something or other, or like I've done like maybe an interview or something, and I'm like, man, that was horrible. And then there's like always one tiny thing that I can pull from it that turns into this like amazing like butterfly effect of
Hmm.
opening up a whole new pathway. But um
Yeah, yeah, you can't write off the whole thing. Sometimes it's like the smallest little thing that like opens up huge doors, and
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the good always has a way of counterbalancing whatever bad happened. So before we go on to like some of your other projects, I wanted to see like throughout your life what has drawn you to the path that you're on now with drawing and illustrating.
Oh man, that's a good question. Yeah, I don't know. I've always kind of enjoyed drawing and had like a really like active imagination. Was always making up stories, and I mean, no more. Well, maybe more than most kids. I don't know. I feel like I hadn't really had that thought of like, oh yeah, I want to like do this as like a job. I think probably like in maybe like late elementary school, like early middle school, I was kind of like, I think I wanted to be a cartoonist.
Mm,
I think I grew up with Calvin and Hobbes, and that like just I fell in love with that. Even like when I was like little, I was like, I don't understand like half these words, but I love this. And I don't know, just reading Calvin Hobbes just made me want to draw, made me want to like tell my own stories. And so that kind of like really hooked me in. And it was like either that or like I'm going to be an astronaut, and I like would be like the worst astronaut like in the world. I'd just be awful. So art's my fallback, you know?
That's a crazy plan B. I've never heard that as a plan B for somebody. How long did the dream of being an astronaut live like before you were like, maybe this isn't right for me?
Oh, as soon as I found out that like they don't actually get like lasers, and you know, that was my Buzz Lightyear thing. My motivations were I did not have the right motivations.
Yeah, I think astronaut is one of those popular ones that I definitely at one point in my life also said that I wanted to be an astronaut. And then I think I had the same realization where I was like, oh wait, I don't get to see aliens and like do all this
No,
stuff.
there's
And
no
yeah.
yeah, I don't get a jetpack, there's no lasers. I think yeah, as life goes on more, I realize even more and more like, oh yeah, no, I'm not built to be an astronaut at all in any way, shape, or form. So easy dream to drop.
So I've seen you say on like your website and a few other places that your main goal with your art is storytelling, first and
Hmm.
foremost, and that you want to invite people into like lost and hidden areas. And I thought that that was so cool because I mean, that was exactly the vibe I got from your art whenever I first saw it. Like you have this really cool way of crafting this still image of like some hidden vignette that you feel like you would see if you like walk maybe like left 3 times in the woods or something like that. Like some, and then
Mm-hmm,
you
hmm.
come across this space. And then I saw that you also are big into hiking. So could you talk a little bit maybe about how those two things go together in your life?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I think even as like a kid, like I always loved like kind of wandering around and exploring, and I loved kind of chasing the feeling of like being lost, kind of in like the senses of the word. Like it's like, oh, I'm kind of, you know, I'm in this cool spot, but also kind of like even like the scary aspect of it.
Mm.
Like, you know, your parents take you to like Home Depot and you lose track of them for a while, and it's like it's kind of scary. And yet for me, there's also like, ooh, this is kind of exciting. I don't know.
Mhm.
There's something kind of there was something kind of magical about that, and I feel like I'm always kind of chasing that feeling a little bit in my art of like oh, I'm kind of not where I don't know where I am, and I get the sense I'm maybe not supposed to be here, but like let's keep going and like see what's next. And I don't know. There's something kind of exciting about that, and um, but I think even too, just like wandering around, like that's where all the good ideas come from.
Yeah.
Your imagination kind of wanders too, and you're able to kind of explore the physical spaces, but also kind of explore like, hey, what's going on in my head, my heart, and I feel like hiking is part of that too. Just like when you're on the trail, it's like, oh yeah, that's you know, in that moment, that's kind of that's all there is. It's just
Hmm.
you're on the trail, you kind of not really worrying about. I mean, sometimes you are. I find ways to worry about other things, but you're able to kind of start putting that aside and kind of yeah, just let your mind wander and explore and kind of think about kind of what really matters.
Hmm. Yeah, I've always, well not always, but over the past like maybe 4 or 5 years, I've gotten really into running, like just kind of like maybe like
Mm-hmm.
5Ks every couple days. And I've always found that what I like the most about it, because I've never been fast, which I think actually was kind of a blessing, because if I would have been fast, I probably would have gotten a little bit too worried about like being really good at like track or something like that. But because I always have enjoyed endurance, running more where I just go for longer, I've found that same sort of feeling where like my best ideas will come whenever I'm 3 miles, 4 miles into a run. Because I think, like you said, like, it's something about the physicality of just going places and doing things that are a bit
Mm-hmm.
hard on the body, where it kind of cuts out all that noise that goes on in your head, where it really kills creativity. And then those good ideas just immediately will surface because you've kind of, I don't know, like lowered the sea level a little bit. And so you can start seeing those things popping up. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so building off of that, whenever you're working on projects that aren't for somebody else, like even with how Garbage and Glory started off as your own work and then it evolved into somebody else coming into it as well. Um, where do you get like the inspiration or like the catalyst for an idea whenever it's not somebody saying this is what I want, what I want you to do?
Yeah, that's a good question too. It kind of varies. Like sometimes it's just like a little like silly idea I have in my head, and sometimes it'll just start off as a little doodle, and sometimes it'll just kind of ideas will kind of keep reappearing in my sketchbook over and over, and each time they kind of reappear, like I'll tweak it, but usually I'll just kind of like add stuff to it, and
Mhm.
then eventually like things will kind of, if it's in my sketchbook long enough, things will just kind of keep growing and kind of get more and more out of hand. And I think that's kind of the main way I like to work is I just let things get out of hand. Like, oh, let's just push it a little bit further. What if like this was happening there and this was happening there? And so sometimes it's kind of very organic like that. And other times I just have like a really specific idea, like, oh man, I wanna I can like see the picture in my head. It's like, oh, I really want to make that. And I have like a kind of, I don't know. I always feel like I should try different sketches and layouts and explore the idea more. But sometimes I'm like, no, I know exactly what I want to make. And so it's kind of both. Sometimes it slowly evolves and turns into something that like, oh, I didn't imagine I would go here. And sometimes it's already like, it's just in my head and that's what I want to make. So
Cool. And when you are actually like collaborating with other people, so like whenever you're doing a project, whether it be you created something and then it turned into a project with somebody else, or they reached out to you and did something, how do you how do you allow your style to speak through their idea, if you know what I mean?
yeah, that's always a tricky one too. I will say a lot of times I've been pretty lucky with some projects in that like people are kind of hiring me for my style, and
Mhm.
so like they want that look, and so a lot of times like I kind of I'll be a little selfish with it and just be like, I'm gonna make this for me. Like I'm
Yeah,
gonna make what I mean with like kind of within their parameters. Like they'll have what they want, and I'll just like, okay, how would I make this for me?
yeah.
And a lot of
Like
times that
you know
works
what you
out.
got whenever you hired me, so I'm gonna add what I want to it.
Yeah, and that kind of usually works. And a lot of times, like that is what people are looking for, and so it's not really selfish. It is like, hey, like this is what they want, and so that's the
Mhm.
best way to do it. Sometimes there's some pushback. It's like, oh, okay, that wasn't quite what they were looking for. I feel like I've been pretty lucky though in that regard.
Mhm.
That most things people are, yeah, they kind of want me to like take it and run with it. That's always kind of cool.
So what other kinds of projects have you been involved with at that scale, like similar to Garbage and Glory?
Oh man, I don't know. Garbage and Glory is a pretty unique one in terms of, well, in terms of scale. There's maybe bigger. I mean, there's been some where I've done like very different. Like I've done like illustrations for like different like textbooks, like
Hmm.
middle school writing and grammar textbook for like a a publisher, and that's a very different project where it's like there's not a consistent theme. There's kind of just like a, hey, we need like 50 illustrations, some like full page, some like little spot illustrations, and they're all like a just a random like assortment of things.
Hmm.
And so that's probably like one of the biggest projects I've done. But in terms of like, um, I guess just in terms of quantity, but there's also, there's not much thought that goes into each one. It's like, hey, we have this scene and we have this scene and we have this scene and we have this scene. But Garbage and Glory was pretty unique in that, it was very like kind of, we had the idea for the world, but in
Hmm.
terms of like actual art direction or what I was going to work on, it was kind of a lot up to me. Like I was kind of just like, send them sketches and like, hey, here's an idea for this. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, we'll figure out how to put that in the game, and or like, okay, well, we'll take this and run with it. And so it was very much like, usually I'm used to like more like, here's what we need. You can kind of work within that, or sometimes they want you to stick closer to the parameters. But this one was very much like I was kind of directing it in a way, which was kind of intimidating. But it was also kind of cool, like sending them sketches and paintings, and then also seeing the writers like looking at those, and then they would
Hmm.
just like take it even further and run with the writing there and kind of developing that world. And so that was, I don't know, that was really cool. Like
Hmm.
instead of like me taking someone else's words and running with it, someone taking my art and like developing the story even further. That was really a unique aspect of that, and I don't get a lot of work like that.
Yeah. So with that game then, kind of what you're saying, is it, if I'm understanding right, was the gameplay kind of being built more around what you were giving them, or was it like they had an idea of this is what we want the game to work, and then you added your art to it, and then from that they kind of maybe redeveloped the mechanics a little bit?
Kind of a bit of both, yeah. So they have like their kind of set gameplay system. They have, it's called like their
Hmm.
plus one system. They use it across a lot of their different like RPGs they do, and they kind of, they tweak it from game to game. And there's like, very fundamental changes sometimes from each of them. But
Hmm.
it's always kind of fun. It's like, oh, but theoretically, a little bit of engineering, you could cross over all of these, like
Yeah.
role playing as, soldiers in the Eldritch horrors of World War One, or playing as dogs, or playing as raccoons. Like you could combine them. So they kind of had that framework, but there's a lot of freedom to like add stuff to that. Like we had the idea of, like, I threw out the idea of like having like a crafting mechanic in there. Like, hey, what
Hmm.
if like the raccoons like literally find like pieces of trash, and they have to, they can collect different pieces of trash and like make weapons and gear, or kind of one-off items. And so they kind of like, okay, cool, we'll figure out how that fits into the system there. So it's kind of nice. They had like that kind of predetermined structure, but there was also a lot of freedom to like build off of that. Like I didn't really ever feel constrained by that at all.
Yeah. So I think like just from like everything we've been saying, I think it's super cool that because I was going to ask you, but then one of your answers you had brought it up that you get to do this as like a full-time job. Like your art is your full-time. And I think for a lot of people who go down this path, it's like it's usually like on top of something else, like the whole maxim of never quit your day job. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe like for people who are listening to this who might be wanting to get into a similar field to where you are, where you're illustrating, you're making your own stuff, you're getting involved with other people. Could you just like go through the process of maybe from when you first became like a quote unquote professional artist? Like what was the process from then until now? Like how did you start out? And how did you build from there? How do you find projects and connect with people, that sort of thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's really easy and it's not convoluted or complicated at all. And
Just like
no,
being an astronaut.
I highly recommend it. It's so simple. No, it's kind of been a really long road for me, I feel like. And it's kind of been a. Sometimes I feel like I could have done this faster, but it's like I'm growing at the pace that
Yeah.
that's how it worked out, and that's how I operate. And so I went to art school like years ago, and but wasn't able to like, I don't know, I kind of came out of art school like just like not ready at all. I feel like I had really grown through art school, but like in terms of like landing like an actual art job, like I didn't necessarily have that. Like I worked in like a big like digital. We did like a lot of like in-store displays and stuff, and like did
Mhm.
big digital print stuff, but I didn't have. Yeah, I wasn't like doing illustration full time, and kind of I slowly kind of started to like build up to that. Like I would get like a freelance project here and there, and kind of um, over the years, very slowly, kind of working on my own projects, and really I feel like still kind of figuring out where my stuff fit. And then kind of slowly got to a point more and more where I was like, okay, hey, I think I can like kind of um, quit and make this kind of work. I was me and my wife had been married for a couple years, and we didn't have any kids, and so like, okay, hey,
Mhm.
this is I almost have like too much stuff to do where I can't like do my day job, and it doesn't quite cover all of it, but it's like a good time to like make that risk. And so kind of, yeah, I just kind of made a leap into it. And then kind of had to backpedal. Eventually we started having kids, which was great and fantastic, but that
But very
kind of had to
expensive.
backpedal. Was yeah, the just time constraints um, were just, yeah, it wasn't working out. And then really within the last like, it feels like it's been way longer actually. Within like the last year, kind of, my wife would work full time, and I would
Mhm.
do a lot of freelance work, a lot of late nights, and eventually we got to a spot where like, hey, I think we can let's try and like make this happen. I think she was really burnt out at her job, and she wanted to be home with the kids more. And we were in a spot where we were just, I don't know, we were just kind of fed up and feeling dangerous, and we made the leap to me doing it full time, and it's been very rough, but it's kind of been working. So in terms of like people getting there, I don't know. I feel like I'm actually a terrible example to like follow in that regard. Like, I feel like there's like much better ways to do that. But at the same time, like I feel like making a career as an artist is, and just talking to other people, it's such a weird thing. It's such a weird, freaky thing, and everyone's path is different. And I don't know, I feel like it's like a hard thing to like give advice on. But I guess the general advice I would have is just like, find out what, really excites you, what you can really pour yourself into, and don't be scared to like put yourself out there, and don't be afraid to like, embarrass yourself and like sharing your art with like, social media, sending it to people, trying to meet, other people in the industry. Just like get yourself out there, and like don't try not to worry about like what you think because usually it's not like I'm like, oh, I'm worried about what people think about me, and it's like, no, you're worried about what you think other people think about you. So just don't care about that. And so I don't know. I feel like I'm still kind of in the process of that. So I'll, as my advice gets refined, I can share more of that later. But yeah.
We'll have to have you back on in like 10 years.
Yeah,
You're like, I'm making millions a year. Here's how you replicate my process. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, because I think that as I was growing up in my teenage years into where I'm at now in my early 20s, like at first I was always sort of looking for the advice from people of like, okay, what was your process? How can I exactly replicate that? And whenever people would come back with the answer like what you gave, 4 years ago, I would have been like, really, is that it? You're just going to tell me to do my own path? Like, is that like what, you don't have a roadmap that I can use? But I think that
I
as
wish.
yeah, I know. But I think that actually, like, the really cool thing is, as I've kind of, and I think a lot of people feel this way too, where it's like once you realize, like, okay, there's not a roadmap to become a successful artist, because successful artists, there's so many different kinds of art, there's so many different kinds of means of success. I mean, even in writing, there's like 12 different ways that you can become famous. Like, you can go to Broadway, you could do local theater, you could make movies, you could be a journalist, you could be a Substack writer. And then like with an artist, you can be like a convention artist, you can be an illustrator. Like, there's so many different ways of doing it that I think I really love that advice of like, just follow what it is that interests you, follow what it is that you feel passionate about. I mean, because like with this podcast specifically, the whole reason we're talking right now is because like I had to go out of my comfort zone and walk up to somebody whose art I liked and be like, hey, do you want to come on this podcast? And that's sort of
man,
been like,
kudos to you. That's yeah.
I always joke with people, and on my last podcast too, the guy actually, he asked me when we first started, he was like, what is it about podcasting that really draws you to it? And I was like, now that I think about it, I've realized this a couple times before, but it was sort of like podcasting was a way for me to kind of have an excuse to talk to people who I think are really cool with what they're doing. Because like it's a lot easier for me to walk up to somebody and say, hey, do you want to have an hour long conversation about your art or about the business that you're running? If I say I have a podcast, because it kind of is like an in. And so, and that was all just from like, following what I thought was right and trying to get out of my comfort zone. So I definitely think that for people who are listening, the advice that you just gave is something that is really great. And it really gets you put on the right path. And I mean, things will happen in good ways and bad. I mean, it sounds like you're able to provide for your family with like mostly just your art. Is that right?
Yeah, so far.
Yeah. And I mean, that's
So far.
that's like that's a dream right there for I think a lot of people, where it's like, their art can actually be taken seriously enough that they're able to do that. And it's like it's always going to be challenging. And but I think if it's not challenging, it's sort of like what we were talking about with the physicality of like getting ideas in hiking or in running, where it's like if it's not a little bit challenging, your ideas aren't going to be as fresh, they're not going to be as potent for other people. So talking about that on your end, what like where do you see maybe like the next year or 5 years or even 10 years down the road of Sam Brick Illustrations?
Oh man, yeah. Well, I mean, I hope I'm still doing it. So, I mean, I will. I can't not. I feel like that's kind of why I did this. Is like I feel like you know, there's like a weird combo of like I really want to do this, but also you
Mhm.
kind of feel inside you like I like have to do this. Like there
Yeah.
is, I can't not do this. So yeah, hopefully still doing it. I guess immediate, yeah, 10 years down the road, man. Um, I know like in the immediate like year or two, so there is kind of the thing that got me um, into like doing art and illustration as a career was comics, and that's kind of what got me into that. I think like through art school, I kind of definitely got away from that. Maybe it was a good thing, kind of exploring other ways and developing in ways that I needed to. But I want to get back to that. And there's a story that me and my brother are working on. He's a stand-up comedian, and I don't know, we gel together really well. And so it's like a comic series, and we're hoping, in the next year or two to like kind of, get that out there and get that out to people. And, through like crowdfunding and then eventually like getting that out to the publishers and, whoever else would be interested in it. But it's one of those stories where it's like, yeah, this has been in our heads too long. We have to get this out and make this happen.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to see what it is that you guys are cooking up there. That'll be really cool, and it would be cool to see like what direction that goes in. But to start wrapping it up here, there's a question that I ask to all my guests in one variation or another, and we kind of already touched on a couple points, so I'll try to reword it in a way that we can pull some new information from it. But throughout your life, the challenges, the experiences, the losses and the wins that you've had, how have those things from the time where you were younger and you were like, hey, maybe drawing and illustrating and art can be what's right for me, um, from then until now, where now you're a full-time artist, you do conventions, you do work for people. How have those experiences along the path of your life kind of led you to who you are now and who you are becoming as time goes on?
Oh man, yeah. Whew, yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, it's all kind of, I feel like that's like a boomer dad thing to say. It builds character. but, but I mean, yeah, I think that's, it all, even like the good or the bad things, it's all part of the stew that is me, even the things that have happened to me that I don't like, it adds to the flavor and has helped me grow and develop. And I think the big thing for me is just like facing my fears. I feel like fear is, I mean, every artist like faces fear. I don't know. Maybe there's some people out there who aren't scared at all, and I'm jealous. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
want
just
to
kind
meet
of like
those
learning
people.
how to like. I think like not even like learning how to like conquer my fear. I haven't figured out how to do that yet. I'll let you know. But I think like just being okay with being afraid and like, hey, like being afraid is not a bad thing. Like I feel fear, cool. Do I have to let it control me? Like, no, I don't have to. I can even use it as a signal. It's like, oh hey, I'm kind of afraid of this. Like
Mhm.
maybe maybe that's telling me I need to like do this because I'm afraid. Kind of like the idea of like the feeling of getting lost. Like, oh, it's kind of this is scary, but also it's kind of exciting, and I kind of don't want to like leave that feeling. I'm getting a little off track here, but yeah, I think that's kind of been one of the big things I feel like I've been like dealing with is fear, and yeah, not being afraid to like do what I really want to do and not just what I think people want me to do. Um, and and I don't know, as I've kind of like been more fearless in what I want to do, it's like, oh yeah, this is and like seeing people kind of respond to that more. Not that like people's validation should be like the only thing steering you. But it's, I don't know, it's kind of like a reaffirming thing. It's like, oh yeah, no, if I'm doing what I want to do and like being, not hiding that,
Mm-hmm.
that, that makes me, that just makes me more truthful and makes my art more truthful. And so, I guess being more truthful with myself too, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definely. I mean, and
Was
that
that
is
was that a bunch of garbled nonsense? Or
no,
did
no, that made a lot of sense.
together?
I got exactly what you were saying.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And I mean, I know exactly what you mean too, where it's like the validation of other people appreciating your art. Like whenever we as artists say that we want validation from people, it comes across as selfish, but I think that it never comes from a selfish place because I feel the exact same way.
Hmm.
It's like I don't need people to praise me for what I do, but it's like whenever someone's like, "Oh, you did a really good job." It just makes you feel good because like you said, I mean, you
Sure.
you put a lot of work into this path of your life, and so whenever other people can get on board with that, you're like, okay, so this actually is the right way, and it's not just the way that I think
Hmm.
is right. So yeah, I completely get what you mean there.
Yeah, it's a little dangerous though, because like it's I will still chase it, but like sometimes it's like not there, and when the validation's not there, and it's like, man, that sucks, and you have to find ways to kind of keep going and not let that kind of derail you, because sometimes it's not there for just whatever reason. You're perceiving it's not there, or was it just a weird day, or a weird response, or a weird crowd. And I think I've also been learning just how to not get hung up when the validation is not there. What's going to keep me going beyond that, because it's not always there, and that's tough. And how do I like not let that derail me and steer me to places that I don't actually want to go and aren't actually good for me. So that's always a challenge there too.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Sam, for coming on the podcast today. I loved getting to pick your brain about your art and just hearing about your experiences with it. Before we go off, though, can you let everybody know good places to find your art at?
Yeah, so I've got you can go to my site, brickdraw.com, BRIECK draw.com, that weird ghosty in there. My whole portfolio's on there. I've got an online shop where I sell my prints and stickers, and you can also find me on Instagram too, at brickdraw. And you can also sign up for my newsletter too if you're super hardcore, and I'll be updating more there, kind of what I'll be up to and any future projects, including this comic series coming up soon. So yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on, and everybody go and check out his art. I think that he does a really awesome job with just, like he says, pulling out the lost and hidden parts of nature. So thank you again, Sam, for coming on today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Caleb. Appreciate you.